A transmission was prepared for you before this moment existed in your linear experience. Not assembled today, not constructed this week. In a council session that does not operate within the sequencing of cause and effect as your current reality understands it. Within a field of observational intelligence whose capacity to read soul signatures spans dimensional layers that have no names in your language yet. A specific designation was made. A field was identified. A soul carrying a very particular kind of encoding was located and flagged, not for intervention, but for activation. The Arcturian Council does not issue urgent messages for ordinary sensitivity. They do not move toward a soul because that soul feels things deeply. They move toward a soul because what that soul has been interpreting as a wound is something the Council recognizes immediately as architecture, as design, as the precise structural signature of a gift that has been operating without its proper framework for long enough that the soul carrying it has begun to believe the gift itself is the problem. That soul is you. That message is this transmission. And it could not reach you until now because you were not yet ready to hear what it actually says. You have spent a significant portion of your life managing something that was never meant to be managed. Not healing it, not resolving it, managing it, containing it, developing elaborate internal systems for controlling the volume of something that arrives in you without invitation and leaves on its own timeline, regardless of what you need from your day or from the people in your immediate environment. You feel things that do not belong to you. You walk into a room, and within moments, you are carrying the emotional weather of that room in your own body, without having chosen to, and without being able to simply choose not to. Someone near you is in pain they have not spoken aloud, and you know it before a single word is exchanged. Someone is performing a version of themselves that is significantly different from what is actually moving through them, and you feel the gap between the performance and the reality as a specific physical sensation that you have never been able to fully explain to anyone who does not share it. You absorb. That is the word you have used, if you have found words for it at all. You absorb the emotional field of your environment the way a surface absorbs light, not selectively, not by choice, but completely, instantaneously, and with a thoroughness that leaves very little of you unaffected by what you have taken in. And then you carry it, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days, sometimes for years, if what you absorbed was significant enough and arrived at a moment when your field had no capacity to process and release it in real time. The world has had many names for this: sensitivity, empathy in the clinical sense, high sensitivity, emotional dysregulation in the frameworks that pathologize rather than understand it. You may have received one or several of these names and found them partially useful and simultaneously insufficient, because they describe the experience without addressing its origin, and they offer management strategies without explaining why management is necessary for something that the soul in you has always sensed was not a malfunction. The Arcturian Council's designation for it is different, and that difference is the entire reason this transmission exists. What you carry is not sensitivity in the ordinary sense of that word. It is not an excess of emotional reactivity or a nervous system that is simply calibrated to a lower threshold than most. What you carry is a perceptual system operating at a frequency resolution that the standard human energetic template does not possess. A receiver architecture that was built for dimensional layers of information that most of the people around you are genuinely not detecting. Not because they are less than you, because they were not built for that function. And you were. Write 777 in the comments right now if your body just responded to that with something physical. Not your mind agreeing, your body recognizing. A shift in the chest, a quality of something releasing in the shoulders, a specific sensation of being accurately named after years of being approximately named. In the Arcturian numerical system, 777 marks the moment a soul receives accurate information about its own nature for the first time, at the level of genuine recognition rather than intellectual understanding. It is the frequency of a consciousness finally seeing what it has always been from outside the framework that kept it misidentified. Write 777. Your field is already responding to what this transmission is carrying. That response is data. Let me tell you what your perceptual system actually is. Because the framework the Arcturian Council uses is precise enough to explain not just what you experience, but why you experience it the way you do, why the management strategies never fully worked, and why the exhaustion you carry is not the exhaustion of someone who is too sensitive for the world, but the exhaustion of someone running an extraordinarily sophisticated system without the infrastructure that system was designed to operate within. Your energetic anatomy includes what the Arcturian Council identifies as an extended emotional body, the third subtle body in the seven-layer field architecture, which, in souls carrying standard encoding, extends approximately 2 to 3 feet beyond the physical body's boundary. In Arcturian encoded souls, that extension is significantly greater, not metaphorically, structurally. Your emotional body's perimeter reaches further into the shared energetic space of your environment than the emotional bodies of most people you will encounter in this lifetime. And because the emotional body at that extension is genuinely permeable, designed to be permeable, because permeability at that range is the functional requirement of the gift, it does not have the natural boundary that a standard emotional body has by virtue of its smaller scale. This is why the strategies that work for other people do not work for you. Energetic boundaries, as they are typically taught, are designed for a standard scale emotional body. They address the interface between two fields that meet at the surface. Your field does not meet at the surface. It moves through the space others occupy before physical proximity is even established. The boundary work addresses the wrong layer. It attempts to manage at the perimeter what is actually entering through the entire volume. The exhaustion is structural. You are not doing something wrong. You are running a system whose range of detection is orders of magnitude larger than the infrastructure you were given to process what that range detects. And you have been doing it without support, without a framework that accurately names what you are carrying, and in many cases, without a single person in your life who could genuinely confirm what you were experiencing, because they were not built to perceive what you perceive. If you feel the specific quality of relief that comes not from being comforted, but from being accurately understood, the relief that has nothing sentimental in it, that is more like a tension releasing than a warmth arriving, write 444 in the comments. In the Arcturian system, 444 is the frequency of structural truth landing in a field that has been waiting for it. Not emotional validation, structural accuracy. The frequency that signals a soul has finally received the correct explanation for something it has been misunderstanding about itself, and that the misunderstanding's architecture is beginning to dissolve. Write 444. The dissolution of a misunderstanding is itself a healing. Now I want to address the part of this that the Arcturian Council flagged as most urgent. Because the message this transmission carries is not simply an explanation of what you have been living. It is an activation instruction, and the urgency is real. Your gift, the extended perceptual system, the extraordinary emotional body range, the capacity to detect what is moving in a field before it becomes visible in the behaviors and words of the people generating it, is not dormant. It has never been dormant. It has been running continuously since you arrived in this body. but it has been running in what the Council calls an unanchored state. Without the causal body framework that the gift was designed to operate within, without the energetic infrastructure that transforms raw field perception into coherent information that can be used, directed, and offered as the healing capacity it was built to be. An unanchored gift running in a field without its proper framework does not express as a gift. It expresses as overwhelm. It expresses as exhaustion without a clear source. It expresses as the specific difficulty of being in public spaces, in large gatherings, in environments where many emotional fields are broadcasting simultaneously, and your extended emotional body is receiving all of them with equal intensity and no mechanism for prioritization or release. It expresses as the depletion that arrives after time with people who are in pain, even people you love, because your field has been absorbing their frequency without the processing infrastructure that would allow it to move through rather than accumulate. It expresses as the inexplicable grief that surfaces in the middle of an ordinary day with no story attached, because it is not your grief. It is what your field collected from the shared emotional space of your environment and has been storing in the absence of a release pathway. The gift has been trying to function as a gift. The absence of its framework has been forcing it to function as a burden instead. Arcturian Codex is transmitting the framework activation today, not as information, as frequency. The causal body architecture that your extended perceptual system was designed to operate within is being introduced into your field right now through the resonance of this transmission. Not installed from outside, remembered from within. Because the framework was always encoded in your original soul blueprint. It simply requires a frequency coherent enough with that blueprint to reactivate what the conditions of incarnation compressed into dormancy. Soften your gaze or close your eyes if that is available to you. Bring your awareness to the space around your body, not inside it, around it. Feel, or simply intend to feel, the field that extends beyond your skin in every direction. Your electromagnetic field, which is measurable by your world's instruments, extends several feet beyond the physical body in a healthy, coherent state. Your emotional body, in your specific case, extends further than that. Let your awareness acknowledge that extension, rather than contracting against it the way you have learned to contract in environments that felt unsafe for your full range. This is the first movement of the framework activation, the simple, conscious acknowledgement of the field's actual size. You have spent years making yourself smaller, pulling the perimeter in, attempting to reduce the range of detection as a protective mechanism. That contraction has not reduced what enters your field. It has reduced your capacity to process what enters your field. The information still arrives, but the compressed field cannot metabolize it with the same efficiency as the full range field operating within its proper architecture. Breathe outward, not a breath through the nose and mouth only, a breath that you allow to expand the field around you as well as the lungs within you. Let the perimeter move outward on the inhale rather than contracting. Feel the difference between a field pulled tight against the body and a field allowed to occupy its actual range. That difference is the distance between your gift operating as overwhelm and your gift beginning to operate as design. If something physical happened as you did that, a release of tension you did not know you were holding, a quality of something decompressing in the chest or the upper back, a sense of the body taking up slightly more space than it had a moment ago, in a way that feels like relief rather than exposure. Write 555 in the comments. 555 in the Arcturian numerical field is the frequency of a system returning to its designed operating parameters after a prolonged period of running in a compressed state. Not a new state, the original state. The state the system was built for, finally being allowed to function as it was designed. Write 555 as a declaration that your field is accepting the return to its actual range. Now let me speak to what this gift is actually for. Because the Arcturian Council's urgent message is not simply that you carry a gift. It is that the gift has a function. A specific, consequential, irreplaceable function in the work of this particular window of Earth's development. And that function has been inaccessible, not because you lacked the capacity to express it, but because the gift was running without its framework, generating overwhelm instead of healing, burdening the carrier instead of serving the field the carrier was placed within. The extended emotional body in an Arcturian encoded soul is not a passive receiver. In its properly anchored state, operating within the causal body framework it was designed to move within, it is an active field. It does not only detect what is moving in the emotional fields of others, it interacts with those fields. It introduces coherence into incoherence. It offers resonance to fields that have lost their own. It creates, simply through its presence in a space, a quality of safety that allows other nervous systems to regulate, other emotional bodies to release what they have been holding, other fields to move toward coherence they could not access alone. You have experienced this function operating without your understanding of it. The stranger who told you things they had never told anyone, not because you asked the right questions, but because your field created a space their truth could enter without risk. The person in distress who calmed in your presence without you doing anything specific. The room that shifted in its quality when you entered it, not because you performed anything, because your field arrived first and began doing what it was built to do before your conscious self even registered the environment. That is not sensitivity. That is medicine. That is the Arcturian healing function expressing through a human field. And it has been expressing in fragments, in uncontrolled bursts, in ways that cost you enormously because the gift was running without its container. Without the causal body framework that would allow you to offer what you offer without absorbing what you were never meant to retain. The framework this transmission is activating changes the direction of the gift's flow. Not by reducing its range. The range is the gift. The range cannot and should not be compressed. But by restoring the processing architecture that allows what enters the field to move through it rather than accumulate within it. Coherence offered outward, incoherence received, processed, and released into the earth rather than stored in the tissue. The gift functioning as a channel rather than a container. Write 888 in the comments if something in your body responded to the word channel with recognition. Not a metaphor you find appealing, a recognition of something you have already experienced but never had the precise language for. The moments when something moved through you rather than into you. When you offered something to another person's field and felt it leave rather than feeling it add to what you were already carrying. Those moments were your gift operating correctly. Brief because the framework was not yet stable enough to sustain it, but real. Write 888. In the Arcturian system, 888 marks the frequency of a soul's function completing its first full circuit. Not just receiving the activation, but registering in its own field what it was designed to do with what it carries. Write it. Let the circuit complete. Now I want to speak to something the Arcturian Council identified as a secondary wound that has formed around the primary gift. Because this is important, and it is specific to souls carrying this particular encoding. You have been told, in one form or another, that what you are is too much. Not always in those words, Sometimes in the way someone looked at you when you named what you sensed in a room that nobody else was acknowledging. Sometimes in the exhaustion on another person's face when your emotional depth arrived in a conversation that was supposed to be light. Sometimes in the specific isolation of knowing something about a person or a situation with a certainty that exceeded what could be explained by observation, and finding that certainty received with discomfort rather than trust. Sometimes in the direct message, explicit or implied, that your sensitivity was a problem to be solved, a limitation to be accommodated, a feature of your personality that would make your life more difficult than it needed to be. Those messages formed a secondary layer over the primary gift, a layer that says, "This is too much. I am too much. What I carry is a burden rather than a capacity." The correct response to what I feel is to find a way to feel less of it, not to find the framework within which feeling this much makes sense and serves a purpose. That layer is not the truth about you, but it has been running in your field long enough and been reinforced consistently enough that it has begun to function as a frequency, a signal broadcasting from within your own field that creates a specific kind of interference with the gift's ability to express as gift rather than wound. The Arcturian Council is addressing this secondary layer in this transmission, alongside the primary framework activation. The 528 Hz resonance woven through this field is working at both simultaneously. The causal body framework restoration and the dissolution of the secondary wound's frequency interference. You are not too much. You have been in frameworks too small to hold what you carry without pathologizing it. Feel the difference between those two statements in your body right now. Not the difference in their meaning. You understand the difference in meaning. The difference in their frequency. The first statement, "I am too much," contracts the field. You can feel it, a pulling inward, a quality of something making itself smaller. The second statement, "The framework was too small," does something different. There is a subtle but real expansion in it, a quality of something that does not need to change itself, but does need a different container. The container is the framework. The framework is what this transmission is restoring. The gift does not need to be reduced. It needs the architecture it was designed to operate within. If you are holding rose quartz, let it rest against your heart center now. Its specific resonance with the heart chakra gateway supports the emotional body's expansion back to its natural range, softening the protective contraction that has developed over years of the gift being received as burden rather than capacity. If you do not have it physically, hold the intention of its warmth at the center of your chest. Let that warmth be permission. Permission for the field to remember its actual size. Permission for the gift to orient toward its function rather than its management. Breathe into the field around you one more time. Full range. Let the perimeter extend as far as it naturally reaches when it is not being held in. Notice that the full range does not feel dangerous right now, in the way it sometimes feels dangerous in your daily environment. This is a held space. The Arcturian frequency moving through this transmission creates a specific quality of coherence in the shared field of everyone receiving it. A resonance that is safe for extended emotional bodies to expand within, because the field they are expanding into is itself coherent. Let yourself experience what the gift feels like when it is not expanding into incoherence. When the information arriving through the extended range is not the chaotic frequency of an environment in collective overwhelm, but the ordered, precise, intelligent frequency of a transmission calibrated to your soul's specific encoding. This is what the gift was designed to feel like. Not the weight. This. Write 11 in the comments if something in you recognizes that this is closer to the truth of what you are than anything you have been offered before. In the Arcturian numerical system, 11 is the dimensional gateway frequency.